Erica. So FM Squared was their album. So they had a release party to introduce us to the other artists, to introduce us to their crew, Too Tough Enough Productions. And we were there, and Denny was so nice. You know what I mean? Yeah, this is our manager, David Lombard. Maybe he could be your manager one day. That was another thing that he put in our heads. Like, he's a good guy. He had his hand around his shoulder, and he was, hitting his chest like this, like he's a good guy, and he's gonna protect us. And if y'all got him as a manager, he'll do the same for y'all. And we were like, okay, nice to meet you, David. And later on, David became our manager. A few months later.
What was your experience with him becoming your manager? What was that?
It's not good ever. They told us straight up, David and Denny was very honest about it and said, this is a conflict of interest. Have you ever heard that term before? Like, nobody really knows that term. Well, I didn't know that term at that time. So, okay, conflict of interest. I thought, okay, he's going to still take care of us, whatever that means. You're talking about something that we had never heard that term ever in my life. I had never heard it. So our manager was managing, like he said, managing David and Denny and Tommy. He was also managing us. That's never good. So if there's something that goes wrong, you can't use your manager as the go-between to fight your battles against that production company.
Right.
So in other words, because our manager was in the middle, so let's see, I'll do it like this. If this is Denny and Tommy, and this is our manager, and this is us, the manager cannot fight. We you know what I mean? We have to have somebody else come in between to make it right between us, because he can't stand there and make it right between us, because he represents them and he represents us. So who's he gonna protect? You know what I mean? He can't. There's a conflict of interest there. So he really couldn't have our backs the way that we needed him to, and that left us in a really bad situation. So that's why we were making 2 pennies a record, because there was no one to really, make sure that our contract was better. And I got to say, and I've said this a few times, during your first contract, you're not going to get a whole lot. You're not going to get offered a whole lot of money because nobody knows who the hell you are. You got to prove yourself to the world first before you can renegotiate or negotiate for better terms. Mm-hmm. After that first album sold 3 to 5 million, really after 1 million was sold, we should have went right back in and renegotiated. Hey, we want more money now, pay us. Well, we never did that. We were on the road, and before we know it, when we got home, we started the second album. So we went in the studio to record our second album. So we recorded Born to Sing under certain terms, terrible terms, beginner's terms, brand new artist terms. And then on the second album, it was the same way for Funky Divas. Same exact thing, same terms. But now we've sold over, 5 million records, like whatever, like, come on, like, where's the money? That's why I said we should have went in and renegotiated, and we never did.
So what caused it where you guys never got back in? Because I know you said you were on the road and everything else, but when y'all came off the road, I'm pretty sure you had meetings before going in and recording and doing more work. What happened where y'all didn't have the chance to say, okay, 2 pennies per record is just outrageous. We need to get this now.
Maxine had called Denny, our producer, the one I told you tell us to shut the fuck up all the time. And she said, Denny, are we supposed to do something like right now? Like, okay, Born to Sing has sold so many millions of records. Like, what, aren't we supposed to like renegotiate or do something? She didn't know the term. And he said, no, because for him, everything was fine. Him and Tommy had a great deal. It was the 4 of us that didn't have a good deal. So he was like, nope, don't touch it. What ain't broke, don't break it. Leave it alone. And it's like, she went to the wrong people. She should have come to me. And I would have been like, okay, Max, that makes sense. Like, I don't know what to do either, but there's something that should happen right now. You're absolutely right. We sold so many millions of records. And I would call her, and we would get on phone calls together and have these powwows about what we should be doing. Let's get the other 2 girls on board so we can fight for ourselves and get a new manager, really, is what we needed. Somebody that would be in our corner only. And we never did that. So, and by then Terry was dating Denny. She was dating Denny on the first album. So she wasn't willing to do anything with us that went against Denny and Tommy. And she made it very clear all the time. She, in fact, so this was the second album. We did the second album under the same terms. We were too afraid to even step to them and say, what should we, like, I remember, I think we still had the same attorney. And I want to say that was Donald Wilson was our first attorney. I know that was our first attorney, but I think we were still on the same attorney because we got a new one later. But I think it was him that said, you guys, it's time to like renegotiate. And once Denny and Tommy found out that we knew, in fact, we were free and clear from the our production company, our production deal with Denny and Tommy after a while.
When was that? When the manager came in, was that after the second album was released, or was it in the middle of all that? Or
it wasn't a manager, because our manager, remember I told you, he represented Denny and Tommy as well as us. So it wasn't him that said that. It was our attorney. Attorney,
yes, that's what I mean. Yeah,
exactly. But again, we didn't want to go against Denny and Tommy. So Maxine made a mistake, and she would always do this of calling Denny whenever she thought, because she didn't realize that they were the enemy. Just because Denny and Tommy loved us in the beginning and was like, we're family now, and we signed you guys, and you're our artists, and we love you, and putting their arms around our shoulders, and y'all are like our little sisters, does not mean that they're not going to do the right thing when it comes to business. They're not going to represent themselves as Denny and Tommy. The two of them had each other's back, but they didn't have our backs because they weren't supposed to. We were signed to their production company, but everything was working as long as we didn't start waking up to what was going on. And the terms that we were under was working for them. So they were fine with that. Don't start asking questions. You know what I mean? Don't start rocking the boat, because no, everything's fine for us. Like, leave it the fuck alone. Don't say nothing. And so we didn't say anything. We didn't bring anything up. So after a while, Maxine and I, like I said, we would have our phone calls. And I was like, wait, Max, so you're right. Our percentages are not high enough, and we don't have enough. And now at this point, we do deserve more. And a lot of times, too, when you have a manager, the managers and the attorneys and the agents, all of them are pretty much bought and sold by the industry. Mm-hmm. You don't want to get an attorney that is like I had this attorney one time, Peter Paterno, great guy, but he also worked for the labels. So he was going to do what was right for the labels because he only has one artist coming in the door named Dawn Robinson. But for the label, he can represent many artists at that label. Mm. So he's careful with how he represents me because he doesn't want to cross the label. I don't know if you understand what I mean, but yeah. So a lot of times the attorneys are bought and sold by the labels, and the manager are the same way. And so in this case, our manager had our producers' backs because they were the ones who they brought him to the table.
That's crazy. Like, it just
his alliance.
It just seemed like you all were like set up to just like just perform and that's it, and not get the income you guys deserved. And exactly. And although you got all the fame and recognition behind the scenes, you didn't get to live the way that you thought you would be able to live doing what you were doing.
No, and we wanted to live the way that our producers were living.